you so much for coming on the show. This is great to meet you because this is how we meet each other, through Zoom. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
Awesome. I have run two companies currently. One is called clickmakers.io. We are digital media buying agency. We are a Google Premier partner. There's a bit of a story leading to it. And the second company is called measurebit.com. We're a data integration, machine learning group, and we put together Humpty Dumptys and stitched together Frankenstein monsters that most marketing stacks are these days.
But you put a nice front end UI onto it, right?
There you go. Yeah. But to give you a bit of a background how I got where I am today, I'm an engineer and physicist by background. I got married very early. We had children, and I couldn't stay in academia, so decided to find employment that would pay more in the private sector. So I ended up working with an ERP consulting firm. So back in the 90s, ERP was the thing.
Yeah.
So
I remember that. I remember that.
There you go. So in my late 20s, I ended up, I was a CTO of a consulting firm that worked with Fortune 100 brands like McDonald's, Procter & Gamble, Siemens, Colgate. Those were clients. Then I moved to Toronto and got a job as a project manager at a software consulting firm. And we dealt with a lot of different companies, like large food service organizations with hundreds of locations coast to coast. And we would deal with big data before there was a name for it. Data warehousing was in its infancy. Like we built, racks of servers, and we would hack into like cache register protocols to get the data, like because the company that made this cache register went out of business as part of the .com meltdown. So there was no documentation or anything, but the client needed access to this data. So we did a lot of really interesting work. Eventually, but essentially the whole team was a bunch of engineers, and someone needed to do sales and marketing. So everyone like pointed the finger at me and, why don't you do it? And I'm like,
was it because you could communicate better than everybody else? I think that's a lot of times that's the key.
Yes,
right?
Yeah. I was the least technical of everyone on that team. So like, once you seem to be good at that project management thing, like sales seems to be similar in marketing, why don't you go figure this out? So
that's the opposite of what happened to me at a startup once. I was the most technical member on the team, and they said, okay, you go build it. And I'm like,
there you go. That's what happens. Yeah.
I hadn't coded in like 10, 15 years by that point. And they're like, okay, well, neither of us is technical, but you're technical, so go build it. I'm like,
sure. Yeah, that's how it works. So I started learning about all this marketing stuff, and I'm like, this is interesting. Like, it's way more systematic and way more scientific than I imagined. And it's kind of cool. So I took a deep dive into that, ended up quitting my job, and hung a shingle as a marketing consultant.
Nice.
Struggled with getting clients for a while, but eventually ended up working with some interesting companies, a Silicon Valley startup called Stackstorm, a company in Toronto called Wild the Apricot, another Toronto-based consulting firm called iMason. And every time I would help them grow, I would be freelancing as a consultant, right? So I would not be an employee. So every time I would help them grow and then would get acquired, everyone gets a big bonus and I get fired. I'm like, this sucks.
It was the like circle of life, right?
Yep. So I realized I either need to be part of the team, or if I am determined to maintain some level of distance from my clients, I will need to become an agency and have some people around me and have a bunch of these clients go through a program at the same time, so that when one leaves, it doesn't become that much of an event, right? Yeah. So that's essentially what I did, and we started an agency. The team started to grow around me. In 3 years, we became a Google Premier partner, which puts us in the top 3% of US agencies.
Fantastic. So, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And 2 years ago, we spun off a data group called MeasureBit. I took a business partner who's a CTO now and super smart. We have a couple of guys with degrees in machine learning and other data experts. And we do a lot of data work now. And that grew out of my need as a media buying agency, like, to understand the data side of things, because media buying has become so heavily reliant on good data that I just could not understand it anymore. So I started hiring developers and training them, and then, you know, when my business partner and I, like, we were in the same mastermind group, and we realized that we were working on pretty much the exact same thing. We started sharing code and showing up to each other's prospect meetings, and, you know, help each other pitch what we did. And eventually there was some revenue, and we're like, gee, this looks like a business, you know, maybe we should start a company together. So that's what happened.
Nice. So
yeah.
so you do programmatic media buying, or what kind of media buying do you do right now?
Most of the time is Google. Yeah, we do some programmatic. We work across a number of channels, but yeah, mostly Google, but we also work with larger media buying organizations, helping them activate new channels. So these days we do a lot of YouTube ads work. But yeah, we've helped companies activate things like Twitter ads or Reddit or LinkedIn or Pinterest, you know, something that most teams don't have a dedicated person to run on.
So if you get down to, so let's talk a little bit about the transition from when you started to today. What would you say is like some major changes that have occurred in your space?
Oh gosh, there's so many.
What's the number one or two changes that you think affected your business?
The biggest thing that is we're going through right now, obviously, generative AI, and that would be too obvious to go and to walk into this door. So this door is open, and anyone can walk into it and talk 4 hours about this stuff. But maybe I'll pick a topic that no one seems to understand very well, and that is that the nature of media buying has changed a lot in the last, let's say, year and a half, 2 years, that everything's going multi-channel. And that changes things dramatically, because we use the last century math, like we use, we apply direct response world arithmetic to multi-channel environment. And when I say multi-channel, it means that something like Performance Max in Google, or even YouTube campaigns in Google, or search campaigns in Microsoft advertising, the artist formerly known as Bing Ads, they are examples of multi-channel networks, and everything's shifting in this direction. That means that not only do I not get to decide the bid or which auction to enter, I don't even decide which network to look for auctions on. Right. So that's a pretty dramatic shift and we as humans, we're terrible at understanding emergent properties. So this little event has several emergent properties that are kind of important, because what happens now is that it matters which channel the network selected for you for that specific impression.
Right.
The quality of that impression, the value of this impression is different. You know, if you're on Performance Max, it runs across all of Google. Search, shopping, Gmail, display, video, you know, and it's everything. When you launch a conversion objective type campaign on YouTube, it's going to be 2 years this October when Google made it impossible just to buy in-stream video ads anymore if you're using any type of, you know, target CPA objective. Which means, like, a lot of people don't understand it. They think, well, I'm going to launch a YouTube ad and just going to be this little video that, you know, annoys someone trying to get to the video they're trying to watch.
That's right.
Maybe not. Like, you can't actually predict if it's going to be that type of video, or if it's going to be an in-feed display ad, essentially promoting the video, or if it's going to be a video placed inside the display inventory, or just a pure banner. Like, it could be a bunch of different things.
But the marketers must really freak out about that, because they want the control, right? I mean, they want to be able to say, this is what I'm running.
You don't have the control anymore. The metaphor I use for this is, is dog training. Like I have a dog, he's 3 years now. And it's been very interesting, to go through the stages of training him and or ignoring him for a bit and then watching him acquire bad habits and then trying to make him to unlearn the bad stuff and learn the good stuff. But it's like, so let's say the task at hand, your goal is to avoid your dog, to prevent your dog from chasing a cyclist, right, which dogs for some reason like to do.
Mm-hmm.
You have two options. One is to have a very short leash, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we used to do as media buyers. We used to have this leash. We used to hold this dog real tight. Or you train him real well so that when there's no leash, he's not going to chase after the bicycle.
Right.
We don't have the leash anymore.
Yeah.
They took the leash away.
Mm-hmm. Well, they basically force you to train the dog.
Exactly. Exactly. So the other thing I say is if there's machine learning, there's got to be machine teaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
As media buyers, we have to become very good and strategic about what kind of habits we teach the machine. It's almost like we call it artificial intelligence, which is a bit of a misnomer, but also it's a good model to apply because you have to deal with it in a way that is somewhat similar to the way we deal with other types of intelligence, that being of a pet, that being of, I don't know, even a human, right? So it's through feedback loops, right? Through providing positive feedback, reinforcement, like when this puppy does the right thing, if he makes a pile on your carpet in the middle of the living room, that's not the moment when you want to give him a doggy treat, right?
No.
You don't want to reward that behavior.
That's right.
But as media buyers trained, sorry, go ahead.
No, does it work the same way for doing this programmatic or this media buying? You can actually
very
control it.
Very similar, right? So what a lot of people discovering, they launch a performance mass campaign for the first time, and they're like, "Oh, I'm getting so much spam. This is all crappy leads that are coming in," or they try to launch something on YouTube, and maybe they used to run something on YouTube that was very tight, and they used to holding a very short leash. Now things are running away from them, and they opt-in forms generating a lot of fake leads, and they don't understand what's happening in there. Well, what's happening there is that the algorithm is not understanding the difference between going to a display placement, grabbing some impressions from a display placement, versus grabbing them from a hard to win, high intent search auction, because the algorithm has the freedom to do whatever it pleases.
Right. And well, why would it go to the lesser quality? Why would it go to the lesser quality spot?
Because if you apply the last century methodology, let's say if one transaction is worth $2,000 and we need 10 leads to get one order, what's the value of the lead? Everyone's going to say $200.
Mm-hmm.
That's a simple Homer Simpson type math, and that used to work in the past, in the last century, when you do direct mail. So you just deploy a bunch of stuff, you wait for the numbers to come in, you sit down with a calculator or, I don't know, logarithmic ruler or something, and you crunch your numbers, and you in the averages work because it's one channel, it's one medium, and you get a chance to actually step in and influence the process, the next iteration of this deployment, of this campaign. Here, things happen real time. So whatever happens inside this impression, inside this conversion, influences how the algorithm is going to behave next. So it has immediate impact. So if your rewards are not set up correctly, like it's like introducing a cancer cell into your body, it starts to impact all the cells around it. Like it basically goes rogue, right? The whole campaign just starts to fall apart because the algorithm is like, well, you asked for it, you gave me a treat, right. I'm going to keep doing that. So when you say each lead is worth $200, the correct answer is no. There's one lead worth $2,000 and 9 leads worth exactly zero. The math of looking at averages used to work, but it doesn't apply anymore in the multi-channel environment.
Right.
We have to predictively, sift and sort through the leads. We may not be able to have a deterministic answer that this lead is going to become $2,000 in revenue, but we may build a machine learning model that will predictably say this lead is probably worth, I don't know, $750, and this lead is only worth $20. And that lead is totally crap. It's zero, right? And we don't want to fire a conversion event for this one at all, right? But then, when you're firing a conversion event for a $750 lead, then basically you want to report it as revenue back to the machine.
Right.
And the machine knows that, this was, don't shy away from an expensive auction, because this is high intent. This is a high value lead. We really want more of those. Keep going into this auction.
Does that mean you got to work these guardrails in from the very beginning? I mean, how do you know what the guardrails are? You may not even know what they are until they come up.
Well, typically you have some history, you have some CRM data. You can glean a lot of really good information from just looking at historical data. Mm-hmm. A lot of companies, a lot of funnels that we audit, conversion tracking isn't set up correctly at all. Things are firing when they're not supposed to fire. They double fire and triple fire. Oof. Or when the correct event happens, they don't fire. And like this conversion tracking stuff is almost always an afterthought. No, like it's not glamorous, it's not pretty, but it's so much more important today than it used to be. The algorithm is a start for data with all this iOS 14.5, and now iOS 17 is about to come out. Like all these things make the job of the algorithm more difficult. Mm-hmm. So if we become lazy, like with our doggy treats, and start dispensing them at random times and in random quantities without being strategic about them, like the algorithm has no chance to help us.
Right. So, but you do need to sort of line that all up ahead of time, so it kind of generally knows what it's doing. Or is it self-correcting in some way?
It is self-correcting at some point, for sure. Like it's like, mm-hmm. when you get sick, you can heal, right?
Right.
It's the same thing. So your campaign gets sick, but if you start following the right diet, exercising, and that kind of stuff, like you get better, right? So, but
would you say
not to
go on?
It's best not to acquire bad habits, right? It's always better to start from a good place.
Right. So you mentioned that you didn't want to talk Gen AI, but generative AI, how has that helped you? Has it helped you? I mean, applying any of the techniques to it, has it helped you do better, or yes, is it just muddling the waters? Okay.
No. Generative AI is going to be, it's so central to everything we do today. It doesn't replace humans, but it makes humans 10 times more productive and effective.
Yeah.
It helps us do research, figure out customer sentiment. You can load a bunch of data like customer testimonials and reviews into the machine and have the machine come up with a bunch of insights, like without having a person spend hours and hours reading this stuff and missing important pieces. The machine doesn't get tired, right? It's much better at processing large volumes of information, and it does it much faster than a human would. So we would very often have someone call up a few customers of our clients and interview them. And now, like we're talking right now, you have your note taker, I have my note taker. So we will do the same thing. We'll have a note taker inside the call, generate a transcript, and then we throw this transcript into an LLM and mine for insights, right? So research is so much easier to do and so much faster to do now, like with LLMs and generative AI. Copywriting, again, there's a human component. Like we don't just have ChatGPT write ad copy for us, but we do have it. We have our copywriters work with ChatGPT to generate ideas, to generate headlines. to interact and iterate like much faster. So we're able to test way faster, way more things, and find what works, find traction much faster this way. We've been playing with image generators like Midjourney has been tremendous in certain markets, certain things. I don't know, with something like, let's say, if you are in the pest control space, like the pictures of the mosquitoes we've been able to generate inside those, like through Midjourney, look real scary. Like, I'm
super realistic,
real, like
right?
way more real than like I think crazy good. So
would you say that I'm assuming you've done testing between sort of ChatGPT generated headlines and copy compared to human generated headlines and copy, and does the ChatGPT stuff like heads and above or is it a mixed bag?
Not necessarily. No, it's a mixed bag. Still a mixed bag. I think the best application of ChatGPT is to save you. Like thinking is an expensive, energetically speaking, it's an expensive job, right? You consume a lot of calories thinking about this stuff. That's why, we crave sugar, like when we work hard and stuff, something like that. And like we get tired pretty fast. Like there's only so much time in a day where you can be at the peak of your, mental abilities. So our performance, our productivity degrades very quickly as humans. So what ChatGPT helps us do is offload a lot of icky mechanical stuff onto the machine and then just make decisions, like creative decisions. And sometimes ChatGPT will come up with the stuff that you never thought of. Like, oh, gee, this is an interesting angle. I never thought of this. Like maybe we should try it. But there's always a human, at least for now, like we always have a human in there. We don't just randomly grab stuff from ChatGPT and throw it into a campaign to test. Because there's always, like it's not just a quality control, but like we always verify the facts because it's known to hallucinate and bring up facts that may or may not be true. Compliance is a big issue for a lot of our clients across all platforms, like be it financial offers or health related stuff. And so there's always a human component because someone at the end of the day has to make a decision. And also our clients always approve the ad copy before we launch it if we're doing it for clients. So it's not replacing the human yet, at least. I don't know how quickly human will get replaced. But it's extremely helpful. Like our productivity is way up, like because of generative AI.
Oh yeah. I agree with you 100%. So it's time to think about the future. It's the year 2033, 10 years from now. Where do you see yourself being? Do you think AI has eliminated much of your work, or do you think that it's just going to continue to enhance it? Or where do you think you'll be in 10 years, your organization as well?
Well, if I look at what happened or transpired in the last 10 years, which we spent a good chunk of time talking about today, smart bidding in Google, which is the first version of machine learning that Google introduced, I think got introduced around 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. Can't remember when exactly. But that's what led to a lot of things that are happening today. They call us new products that Google is launching, and the nature of our job as media buyers has changed dramatically. What hasn't changed is the research component, the creative component, like because of that type of machine learning, like that optimizes bidding, optimizes targeting. So those are the first two things they attack. Now what they're going after is the actual creative, and that's where generative AI comes in as well.
Right.
This is the third dimension, right? So I'm sure the nature of our work will change in a very dramatic way in the next 10 years. I don't know exactly what our jobs will look like, but I imagine they will be way more strategic. It will be more about formulating the offer in the product and less about pushing buttons inside the interface. We we do push a lot of buttons now, but it's a very different button pushing than the kind of button pushing we did a decade ago. We used to manage things in giant spreadsheets and, micromanage every keyword and every ad group. And like it's very different now. Like it almost never, like the old fashioned stuff still has its place. There's certain borderline cases where this kind of approach is still effective, but it's rapidly going away. Like like what we do now is different.
Well, do you foresee a point where you've actually got the very simplistic instructions to an AI, and then it basically generates the entire media buying campaign from start to finish?
Certainly. I don't think we're probably not very far away from something like this. Like all the Legos, I'm almost there, because then it's up to us, like what we want to build out of them. But I think we're getting pretty close to that. But
then you definitely need the human element in there. So otherwise, who knows what's going to come out of it? I mean, plenty of times I've used ChatGPT and it's just generated total hallucination, and it's said it with such conviction. You think it's absolutely right, but then you sort of instinctively go, wait a minute, that does not seem correct. And you have to capture that way. I mean, how do you check it? How do you check against it? You just use intuition, or how do you confirm that it's not creating something hallucinatory?
That's going to be very interesting, because a lot of content online is rapidly becoming that generated by AI.
Yeah.
So if you just go and, double check the facts by doing a normal Google search, you don't know if you can trust those results either.
Exactly.
So that's what they call the model collapse. When LLMs are trained on LLM output and hallucinations enhance themselves. Because similar effect to sending that conversion data to the algo that chooses auctions for you, right?
Right.
Same exact thing. Like it's what we call in engineering, we call it positive feedback loop. There's nothing positive about it. Like a nuclear bomb is a positive feedback loop.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
awesome. Well, this has
bad things enhance bad things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. I mean, very interesting stuff talking to you. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Best way is probably email alex@measurebit.com or Alex Makarski, Makarski, on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Thank you so much. I'll put all your contact information in the show notes. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, they can go directly to you. So thanks so much.
Thank Chris. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Talk to you later. Bye.